Hi guys, welcome to today's video. On this video, we will discuss about feature management in Web API project. So what is feature management? So let's say I have a requirement where I have an endpoint in my Web API project and I want to expose or I want to enable this endpoint only in the non-prod environments, and on the production environment I want to disable or hide this endpoint. So how do we achieve this requirement? So let us see with an example how we can achieve this requirement. So let us open Visual Studio. Let me open Visual Studio on my machine, and let us open a empty web.net core project. And I've created this project already. And here, if we could see, by default we have a controller called weather forecast controller, and by default we have the endpoint also here, right? So when we run this application, we will be able to see this endpoint, right? And we will be able to invoke. And what my requirement is, I want to enable this endpoint only in the non-production environment, and I want to hide this endpoint in the production environment. How do we do that? So before we start making any changes in our application, let us run our application pointing to both production and non-production environments, and we will see whether our endpoint is visible and whether we are able to invoke the endpoint or not. So how do we run our application? By pointing to the different environments, that is by setting the environment variable in the launch settings, right? So now by default, if we see, our application is pointing to the development environment, and for development environment we have app settings, right? So similarly, let us create one app settings for production environment. Okay, let us add one app settings. Let us right click on the project and add new file, and it's a ASP.NET Core and app settings file. So I'm going to name the file as app settings.production.json, right? So let us create this file, and we have the file in place. So for the simplicity, so let us just copy the content whatever we have it in the development environment, and let us keep our production app setting file also simple uh, as what we have in the development environment, right? Fine, now we have two environments. So one is development and second one is production environment app settings. So now let us run our application and see if our endpoint is invocable, right? So right now our application is pointing to the development environment, right? So let us run our application. Yeah, so our application is running and we are able to see our endpoint, right? So let us try to invoke this endpoint, and we are able to get the results. Okay, so let us stop it. Let us stop our application, and now let us try to point our application to the production, right? So let us change the environment variable to production, so that it will point to the production app setting files, right, or production environment. So I've made the changes, and let us run the application now. Okay, our application is running, but we are not able to see Swagger in the UI, right? So why we are not able to see that? So let us quickly investigate in the program.cs file. And yeah, so here if we see, the Swagger UI is enabled only when the environment is development, right? So that's when we are enabling the Swagger UI. So in this case, we want to enable the Swagger UI for both production and development, right? So in order to do that, either we could comment this piece of code or allow production environment also, right? So we can simply say app dot environment dot is production, right? So This way our application will allow Swagger UI for development environment and as well as for production environment. And this is one way of doing it, and in the other way we can simply remove this if condition, so that irrespective of the environment Swagger UI will be loaded, right? Okay, so now let us try to run our application and see if we are able to see the Swagger UI. Now our application is pointing to production. Let me stop the application and just rerun it. And now can you see our API is invocable, so we can execute this and we are able to see the results that are returning from the endpoint. Now in the production environment, when our application is pointing to the production, we want to hide or disable this endpoint. That's our requirement, right? So how do we achieve that? For that we can use feature management. So let us go ahead and add the feature management utility. So let us add the feature management. For that I'm opening NuGet package manager and I'm going to search for feature management, right? So let us add microsoft.featuremanagement.ASP.NET Core. So add the package, and package is getting added. It'll take a couple of seconds to add the package. Okay, so it's asking for our approval, so the package is added now. And as a first step, let us flip to program.cs file and let us add the namespace. So the namespace is using Microsoft dot feature management, right? So this is our namespace, and add the feature management service. So in order to do that, we can add it here. So builder dot services dot add feature management, right? This is the first step that is over. And now let us move to the app setting files. So in the app setting files, we are going to add the section for feature management. So let us add feature management, right? So section for feature management, and I'm going to have a variable called enable API for non-prod, right? So this will be true for the development environment, right? And this will be false for the production environment. So let us copy the section and just paste it in the production app settings as well. And in production we want to disable it, right? So let us put the value to false, right? And now second step is over, and the third and final step is navigate to the controller and go to the endpoint, which endpoint we want to apply this condition or logic. So we are in the controller page, and let us add the namespace, which is Microsoft dot feature management dot MVC, right? And let us include the attribute called feature gate and the variable whatever we have defined in our app settings. Just a moment. Okay, let us go to the app settings, and what's the variable? So this is the variable, right? So let us copy and let us flip back to the controller file and just include it. That's it. So now let us run for both the environments and let us check if we are able to see the endpoint or not. So let us go to launch settings, and now it is pointing to production. So for production, we have set the feature management to false, right? So endpoint should be disabled, right? So seems it is having a extra closing bracket. Yeah, yeah, now it's correct. And similarly we'll see it here as well. Okay, fine. So now everything is okay. Now our application is pointing to production, and let us try to run it and see if we are able to see our API available. Yeah, so our API is available here. So let us try to invoke this and let's see what we are getting. Can you see? So the API is there, but when we try to invoke, so it is saying 404 not found, but our API is available, right? But since our application is pointing to production, and in production we disabled this endpoint, that is the reason why we are getting the 404 error code when we try to run our application pointing to production. On the other hand, let us try to run our application by pointing to the development environment. So in order to point to development, what we have to set? We have to set the environment variable to development, right? So let us change the environment variable to development, and here as well save the changes. Now our application is pointing to development, and in development environment we are enabling this endpoint, right? Now let us try to run our application and see if we are able to invoke the endpoint. So let us try to execute our endpoint, and can you see we are able to get the result successfully, right? So this way we will be able to hide the endpoint based on the environment variables. Yeah, that's what I wanted to quickly demonstrate on the feature management, because it is simple and really useful in the real-time projects. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.